Lewis Hamilton does the opening day Las Vegas double after topping first and second practice in Sin City, as Red Bull have significant time to find. Elsewhere, Racing News 365 understands that F1 is set to welcome a new team to the grid in 2026. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by the legend that is lead editor Ian Parks, who's once again gone above and beyond to find the most extravagant of backgrounds. Ian, firstly, the background looks spectacular because you are, of course, in Las Vegas this weekend. Well, I say this weekend, actually, for you, it's only the early hours of Friday morning. And we've got to start with Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes because cool track conditions, a very, very dirty track surface. We've seen so much dust, a dust bowl in Sin City. And unsurprisingly, it means that Mercedes are looking quite strong.
Yeah, hello, and a very warm welcome to Las Vegas. Yes, I am in Las Vegas and not Blackpool, just in case anybody's thinking that the casino behind me is a different place other than Las Vegas. No, I am sat in a genuine Las Vegas casino. I thought, what better place to provide an update than with a casino background? I'm in Las Vegas. It doesn't get much better than this, Nick. And also means it's freezing cold outside, can I just add? And it means at 1:45 in the morning, when I'm recording this Las Vegas local time, I don't have to stand outside freezing my nuts off. So at least I'm in the warm, the dry. And as I say, I'm giving this lovely casino background. But yes, what a difference a few weeks, mate. Because if you think, let's go back to the Brazilian Grand Prix, or the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, as we should officially call it. Lewis Hamilton had an absolute shocker of a weekend. Regardless of the weather, yes, it played its part, but he and that Mercedes were just not at one with that circuit all weekend, to such an extent that Lewis, in his radio message, if you recall, at the end of the race, almost indicated as if to say, oh, if this is my last race, guys, thanks ever so much for all you've done. He was that close to potentially not even seeing out this triple header with Mercedes before moving on to Ferrari next season. He had such bad vibes. But here we go, 3 weeks on. And as I say, what a difference that period of time has made. Now, it looks good so far for Lewis Hamilton. As you say, he topped both practice session, looked good on the medium tyre, looked good on the soft tyre. And Mercedes in the much cooler conditions, and we know this car runs better in much cooler conditions, as we saw with Lewis's victory in Silverstone, Lewis's victory in Belgium. It was only 11 degrees air temperature, 13 degrees track temperature by the time we finished at E2 at the Las Vegas Strip circuit. Looking good. He has bemoaned the lack of race pace in the car. However, I think we're going to find that every team is going to bemoan a lack of race pace simply because of the colder condition. And also, that circuit is very low grip. Boy, was it dusty when we started FP1. Pretty much every driver had a little bit of a moment, locking up, using the runoff areas to escape simply because of the low grip nature of this track, as I say. But at the moment, so far, so good for Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. George Russell looking very strong as well.
Yeah.
Not going to discount him out at this stage. He would have put in a really good, strong lap on the soft fire in FP2, but for encountering a very slow Valtteri Bottas in the final sector. Otherwise, he would have definitely been above Lando Norris, who finished second quickest. Whether he would have been good enough to have finished quicker than Lewis Hamilton, hard to say. But Mercedes at this stage on the right track after what was, in particular for Lewis, a howler of a weekend in Sao Paulo.
And it was a Mercedes 1-2 in FP1 and a Mercedes 1-3 in FP2. And actually, you mentioned there, of course, just how cold it's been. And we've seen Mercedes and Lewis in particular be very, very strong on the opening day of a Grand Prix. And typically what happens is McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull improve mainly as the track surface and the track conditions improve as well. Do you think, given how unique the Las Vegas Strip circuit is, with as well the fact that the circuit is pretty much never used because it is, of course, a street circuit, and the fact as well that the conditions are so cool, do you think we're not necessarily going to see the same elevation in terms of the track and the performances compared to in the past? Could this be a venue where actually Mercedes could, well, their Friday pace could be there at the top on Saturday?
I think we are going to see track evolution simply
Mm,
because the track it will be considerably or will continue to
yeah.
get cleaner as the weekend moves on. There are additional attractions on track as well, so that's going to play its part. The difficulty will come during a Grand Prix in particular when a driver has to go offline to
Mm,
complete a pass. Now, we do know that the one thing about this circuit, which is what lent itself to such a great Grand Prix a year ago, is the fact it has good overtaking opportunities, especially at the end of that long, straight strip section going into what is a relatively sharp left-hander. We saw numerous passes a year ago, but as I say, it's going to take a considerable amount for a driver to complete that pass simply because he's going to be running in a lot of dirt and dust offline. But I still think it is going to lend itself to still having a good race on Sunday. And as I say, these conditions, we're not going to see any rain, that's for sure. So the
yeah.
dust isn't going to get washed away. But what's going to remember, Las Vegas is in the middle of the Nevada desert, which is
Yeah.
another reason why this track is so dusty as well. Unlike somewhere like an Azerbaijan or Monaco, especially if you think of Monaco, simply because the conditions there. Yes, it does rain, so the road surface does get
Yeah.
clean. Here, though, rain very, very, or doesn't happen very often. So we're not going to see rain this weekend. That's going to help clean the track. So yes, it is going to remain particularly dusty and dirty offline. Therein lies the problem with regard to overtaking. But yes, I do still think it will ramp up. Already the leading times in FP2 are far quicker than anything that was set at the end of last year's practice sessions. So going into qualifying, I'm expecting to see really low lap times there compared to what we saw in qualifying a year ago.
And moving on to Red Bull, and what is a significant weekend for the team and Max Verstappen, who can, of course, claim his fourth consecutive F1 driver's title in Sin City, but a lot of time for Red Bull to find following the opening day. Max Verstappen in P17, Sergio Perez P19, both Red Bull drivers over 2 seconds slower than Lewis Hamilton. However, should be noted that neither Red Bull driver actually completed a hot lap on the soft tyres, but nevertheless, 2 seconds to make up is extraordinary.
Yeah, there obviously is quite a gap between the medium tyres and the
Yeah.
softs. As you say, there were extenuating circumstances. A red flag in that session really didn't help the two Red Bull drivers. That meant they got caught up in that. So as you say, they weren't able to set that soft tyre run. However, even if they had done that, it's looking like the car in particular is struggling down the long straights. And the reason for that, as we've discovered post practice, is that the Red Bull is struggling with its rear wings in particular. It tried to basically, it could have the wrong rear wing here compared to its rivals. You really need a low drag concept for this circuit. It doesn't have that rear wing compared to its rivals. It tried to dial some of that difference out in between FP1 and FP2, even going so far as to remove the gurney flaps on the wings to give it that extra additional performance. However, it looks like it's still a considerable deficit off its rivals. That would play a considerable part in qualifying, which will then have a knock-on effect, of course, going into Sunday's Grand Prix. At this stage, after the two practice sessions on Friday, it does not look like Max Verstappen will win his fourth consecutive title at this circuit. I'm not going to rule it out, of course,
Yeah.
because Max has this considerable lead. And if Lando Norris goes and things his car in the race like he did a year ago, then of course, all Max has to do is that would be game over. It's effectively, it doesn't matter what Max does, the points gap, the considerable points gap between those two will stand going at the end of that. And then Max is a four-time world champion. So still anything could happen.
Yeah.
But if Lando Norris reproduces his strong performance that we've seen so far in practice, and Max is a fair way back down the road because of this rear wing issue, then it will spill over into the next Grand Prix in Qatar. As I say, still anything could happen. It's that kind of circuit. It's a street circuit. We know incidents could happen, red flags, etc., etc. Safety cars, who knows? But at this stage, it's not looking good for Red Bull and Max Verstappen.
And you mentioned Norris, and actually in FP2 and FP1, both sessions, he's looked strong as well. Of course, was second fastest in FP2, only 0.011 thousandths of a second, hundredths of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton. I'm sorry, guys. I've been away for
It's
a couple of weeks.
11,000.
I was great. I've got
It's
to trust myself.
11,000. Yeah.
Been away for a couple of weeks. The lesson to learn here is don't take time off. You become rusty. But obviously, Lando Norris, it's a big weekend for him. The pressure is on him, really, to keep some sort of a driver's title fight alive. And on a weekend as well, where Oscar Piastri looked off the pace on the opening day, he was down in P8. And also, it seems at McLaren as well, following some comments from Oscar, it does feel like actually these intra-team orders are kind of not going to exist anymore because Lando is so far away from Max.
Yeah, the one caveat that has been mentioned, it's going to take something absolutely extraordinary for Oscar Piastri to do Lando Norris a favor. And the only scenario that you could apply to that is if Max Verstappen retires from a Grand Prix, this weekend he has a crash or just a mechanical goes wrong. And let's say if Oscar was ahead of Lando on track and in a position to give a place to Lando further up, that, as I say, that's the only situation I can think where that could really apply to continue this type of fight going into Qatar and then ultimately Abu Dhabi. But as it stands, Oscar will not be doing Lando any favors if Max is in a reasonable position in the points, shall we say. So Lando has very much got to do this on his own. And at this stage, given the performance of the two McLarens, and there's quite a gap between the two, as we saw at the end of second practice, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever in any case. Just going to add at this point, folks, Nick mentioned there about being rusty, coming back, having had a couple of weeks off. The reason is our boy got married. So drop your congratulations in the comment section below. Please don't astron us. He's a married man now. I know he's blushing, but I just want to give Nick a shout out and just to let people know as to why he's had a bit of time off. So congratulations, Nick. Well done, mate. Let's crack
Thank
on.
you very much. I wish I was in Vegas celebrating, so it looks like good fun behind you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I should be next year. Of course, one of the reasons why McLaren as well can't focus as much on the drivers is that in the constructors, there is very much a fight alive. Because of Ferrari in particular, Ferrari have looked good as well on the opening day in Las Vegas. Carlos Sainz in fourth, Charles Leclerc in fifth. However, both Ferrari drivers, it looks like, have a bit more pace than their lap times actually suggest. And I guess for Ferrari and McLaren as well, that is perhaps where both of their eyes are now, because actually, there's not a big difference between them. And there could be, with what we saw in Las Vegas last season, there could be a big swing this weekend, because as we've seen with the track surface, with just how cold it is, anything could happen on Saturday night.
Yeah, this is Las Vegas. It's the strip circuit. We saw that anything really did happen a year ago with everything that took place and unfolded over the few days there. So, yes, Ferrari cannot be counted out. They did bring a new floor here. Now, we're led to believe that in FP1 in particular, only Carlos Sainz ran that floor. It is an experimental floor, and we're led to believe that it has now come off the car and will remain off the car going into the weekend. But who knows with Ferrari? They are a team that does keep its cards very close to its chest. And yes, I know I'm using a bit of a card on there in Las Vegas. Apologies for that. That was unintentional. That just, exactly. That just came off the top of my head. Anyways, as I say, they are definitely in the mix, though. I'm not going to discount them out at this particular stage. And given the position of Lando and Oscar from McLaren, any points that both Carlos and Charles can make up, given Oscar appears to be struggling at this particular point in time, but he could be rescued overnight going into qualifying, and then he might play his part. But at this stage, they're looking very even Steven. And given that we're expecting Qatar to favour McLaren, McLaren will be more than happy, I would suggest, if they come out of this Grand Prix, still very much maintaining that 36-point gap there or thereabouts over Ferrari going into the last two Grand Prix. As I suggested, bearing in mind Qatar should be a stronger track for them than for Ferrari.
And of course, so many of these talking points will change and are set to change based on what happens in qualifying and the race. One thing which is not going to change this weekend, but more towards 2026, and it is the final talking point, is that Racing News 365 understands that Formula One are set to welcome Andretti to the grid in 2026 for when the new engine regulations are introduced. I mean, Ian, what a dramatic U-turn this looks set to be. Of course, Michael Andretti has recently stepped down from his position, has taken up a smaller role. And obviously, it seemed like only a few months ago, F1 was kind of against the idea of welcoming Andretti onto the grid. It's a fascinating change.
It is quite remarkable because let's just take this back. Of course, FIA opened its expressions of interest process. Ultimately, cutting a long story short, it approved Andretti. That bid then went on to Formula One to determine the viability of the whole package that Andretti was bringing to the table. It ultimately rejected Andretti's bid, albeit leaving the door open, bearing in mind the partnership it knew it was going to have with GM, General Motors. Now, what then followed is that General Motors said they were going to come on board as a power unit supplier, but not until 2028. Andretti was still in the background, building up its resources, building up the factory, hiring many people from different teams within Formula One. But ultimately, the 10 teams in Formula One at present, were still very objectionable towards Andretti coming in. Of course, as you just mentioned then, Michael Andretti took a step back most recently from his overarching role within the companies, the leadership role that he had there. And now, fast forward just a few weeks on, and all of a sudden, it seems now like Formula One is going to be much more receptive to this bid, with GM playing a more central role within the Andretti organization. Will it be called Andretti ultimately if and when it does get onto the grid in 2026? That is the moot point at the moment. We're not
Yeah.
quite sure. I'm going to give a lot of credit here to my Racing News 365.nl colleague, Aaron Deckers, who has come up with this great story today, this exclusive that we've landed on our website. A lot of credit, as I say, goes to Aaron for this one. So as I say, it's looking very much like a Andretti GM package, but maybe a GM Andretti package instead. But the problem is that there still has to be a power unit supplier for this team for 2026 and 2027, because there's no way that GM can rush its power unit
Yeah.
through to be on the grid as a brand and entity in its own right in 2026. It's still got to wait until 2028 to get all those ducks lined up in a row for it to be that supplier in 2028. So we need to wait and see who the power unit supplier might be for 26 and 27. Ferrari and Honda, the two front runners at the moment for that position. But yes, at this stage, the way things are looking, we could get an announcement quite soon on this, that there will be an 11th team in Formula One, a long awaited 11th team, has to be said, in
Yeah.
Formula One in 2026 now.
And of course, for those watching this video, let us know in the comment section below what you think about Andretti likely joining the sport in 2026 and who you think should drive for the team as well. That's a good little debate that I think we can start having now. Ian, it is that time. It's been a few weeks, but we've got to go back to our bold predictions, and I'll kick things off. I think I don't want to say gambling, but you are in a casino, so it seems like yours needs to be bolder than normal to kind of fit in with Las Vegas. I'm not in Las Vegas, so I'm going to play it safe. And I think we're going to see a Mercedes pole position. Which Mercedes, I'm not sure, but I could quite easily see both Mercedes based on what we've seen on Thursday evening qualifying in the top three. Over to you. How bold are you going?
It's looking very good for every reason that I explained earlier about the
Yeah.
Mercedes liking the cooler conditions. That opens this window of this operating window whereby Mercedes has struggled in much hotter
Mm.
conditions. It's a very, very narrow window in the hotter conditions. the car does struggle. So given these much cooler conditions, yes, it's looking very good for them right out of that operating window. If you want something a little bit bold, I like the look of Haas in
Yeah,
second practice. Both
yeah.
Kevin and Nico once again managing to look quite strong. So I'm going to go for a Haas double in top 10 in qualifying. There you
Okay,
go.
I'll
That's you
let
wanted
you know
something a
that. I'll
little bit
take that.
bold.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take
Yeah,
that. And of course, and of course, for those watching this video, let us know your bold predictions below as well. And of course, please do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. This has been the post Thursday, need to get my days correct, F1 update from the Las Vegas Grand Prix from myself and Ian. We'll see you on Friday evening, Saturday morning. You know the gist. See you later.
exactly. Mate. I'm just as confused as you, mate. It's just gone 1 a.m. in the morning here, local time in Las Vegas. I am on Friday officially right now, so I am in line with you guys. But yes, it's very, very confusing at times. But hey, we love this sport. That's why we're here.
See you later, folks.
Take care as always.